There's a big confession coming up. Sit down, everybody. Support that kills people. Let me start that again. Let me try that again. You've been away for far too long. Oh, how many times do I want to say actually in a sentence? Guys, how many times was that? Hey, this is why you watch my videos. We make up words, we make up things, and we just waffle our way through 30 minutes. And I don't know why you guys like it. A 28-minute autosave. Yep. Hey everybody, how's it going? So thanks for coming along to this episode of ChachoLandia Extra. This is the catch-up episode. This is the one that didn't happen because of the vomit comet. You can hear the whirly rig in the background. So of course there's going to be another episode that's going to be dealing with all of the pirate area and stuff. But this is just specifically for the Intamin that we did. So yeah, this is thinking back a couple of weeks now. This is it's all a bit weird, right? So here we go. This is the Intamin. First things first. We're going to tear apart quite a bit that you guys have asked me to do. So there's the station to do. There's the queue line. I'm going to do the launch section, but before we do any of that, I'm going to tell you some of the things that actually I've corrected. So there's some corrections that have been going on. The first things first is I had to reprofile this section here. So it turned out that there was no real escape strategy that comes from here. So I had originally put catwalks and everything back in here in time for this episode, but actually I did some research into evacuation strategies for Taran, so I've kind of copied the evacuation strategy there that they use. So they don't actually have catwalks that lead back to the station or anything. What they do have are these like retractable catwalks, and they live in the station, so they come along and they slot into places. So that's kind of what we're doing here. So I did originally want a catwalk, but I thought actually no, let's not. Let's just keep it bland and as it is. Another thing that I've corrected is just the angle on these bits here. So the angle of this fencing and everything was just in slightly the wrong place. I've also tidied up some of this area around here. So some of the foliage was poking through. But it's just really not very nice. This was the biggie. The support that kills people. So yeah, I didn't realise that the support was the wrong way. So even on the POV from the last video, it's wrong. So you actually go through the support. So I've corrected the support. That's now the right way. It's now the right angle. It's now the right everything it should be. And that's purely because originally the Intamin that we've got here was actually the other way round. So I've actually changed the... Oh, how many times do I want to say actually in a sentence? Guys, how many times was that? So the Intamin was the other way round. So I've moved it across. I've repositioned it, repurposed it. I've also reprofiled this bend here. And I've reprofiled this bend here. They were being taken just a little bit too tightly, so I've just lengthened those out. And the last thing to show you on here as well is this bit here. So where I've been dealing with some of the pathing and everything, I had the terrain sticking through, and I didn't notice that on the previous episodes this was all here. So lots of tidying up that's been going on. Right, so let's go ahead and tear some stuff apart. Alright then, so you guys have asked me to tear apart various parts of the queue line, so I reckon we should just go ahead and do that. And we're going to start here with the queue cover. The queue cover is actually nice and simple. It's only a couple of pieces, or 60, he says. So we start off with the haunted house beams. I always choose to use the bigger ones, by the way, and sink them into the ground, because then you can control the height. You're not actually dictated to by the height of the actual piece itself. So that's why I've used the 4-meter piece here. And then all I've done is I've created a little bit of a support mechanism for it. So we've got a couple of diagonal braces that are on here, and these are just the Western set stuff that we use everywhere, right? So we're used to this by now. There we go. So you just create some diagonal braces, and then similar to the log flume roof, I've just put the supporting braces, something for the roof to actually sit on along here, and then put it into real thin lines so that you've got plenty of support going on, and then just use the wooden scaffold on the top just to finish it off. And the wooden scaffold, by the way, that comes from the adventure pack. So that's nice and simple, right? So there's no real trickery involved with that one. It's just a clever placement of stuff. And we come over to the queue line, and I intentionally chose different queue fences for this. So I wanted to use the pirate one that comes with the whole game. And then I also wanted to use the real generic queue line. So this is just a Thememaker's Toolkit one that you can just download. I mean, I think it's even in the park pack that I've got for the top tips videos where I give you all of the Theme Makers Toolkit stuff. So it's just a nice, simple, generic fence. It's not made by me. It comes as Theme Makers Toolkit. But I wanted to do that because the extended queue lines probably wouldn't have as much effort made to it than you would do for the main queue line. So this is a queue line that would be open when the park is busy and everything. So then we come across to the maintenance shed. Now this is where there is some stuff that's going on to show you. So the maintenance shed uses a lot of the haunted house stuff. So again, it's just that real thick wood beam, and I've used the thick wood beams everywhere, right? So yeah, it's just, they're just so versatile, they're just so great. And then likewise, so you've got the vertical ones here, and then I've placed it horizontally along this way as well, just like that. And then I've used the rest of the haunted house pillars just to give it a bit of a lip. So what I've done there is just aligned it slightly over this way, so you can see that there's a lip to it. And then these pads, they come with the I'm just going to delete this. They come with the haunted house pack, the spooky pack, and they are the graveyard pillars, just sunk into the wall. And I wanted to have some kind of decoration that we didn't really have access to elsewhere. So I wanted to have some kind of a stone effect, but there wasn't really anything that was worth using in here. So I've actually ended up using those graveyard pieces. I just put everything back, and then what I've done here is I've scattered it about with some decoration and some stuff. So you know, the pirate clutter that you've got, it's nothing really made. There's nothing specially made here, but then what I've done down here, if I just pull this out, there we go. So then I've used the fairy tale cornerstone to be a bit of a footing for this pillar, and then you've actually got the pillar itself. And then along the top here, we've just got your Castle Broken Wall set. So this actually comes with the game. You guys have got this. I think this comes with the spooky pack, but it comes with it. And then on some occasions, because you're very dictated to by the shape of this, right? So you have to use it in a very specific way. But what you can do, if I just take a copy of this, and then you can change your grid size, and you now have a bit more control over how it looks. And you can sort of create some more jaggedy edges by changing your grid size and placing it down. So you don't have to place them side by side next to each other and have that repeating texture. You can place them at different intervals, so you've now got control over how that actually looks. You've got a little bit more variation, and because they come in two variants as well, so you've got one here like so, and you've got one here like so. You can actually start to create some more varying patterns and some varying textures. So just be careful what you're doing with this though, because of the bricks not lining up. Sometimes you might have to just squint and hope for the best. So yeah, that's everything on there. Then the roof I've just topped out with just in-game rectangle pieces. I like to keep this one nice and simple. It's supposed to represent a bit of a metal wood. It wouldn't metal roof. It wouldn't be corrugated or anything like that. It's just nice and simple. Because of course inside we're using our own roof. So again, this is just the rectangle, but it's now painted grey. So I'm actually using this double roof technique. If I just come down here like this, so I've got a bit of a void that's inside the roof, and that actually gives you control over how your roof looks at the above and below inside. So especially if you're doing interiors, it's really good to have that double roofing effect. And then over here in the queue line as well, I've used this fence. So I'm just going to pull this out here. Now this one is absolutely no trickery involved at all. It is just about how you've placed things down. So we've got the usual fence that's on a grid. So these are the two pillars here, this one and this one. And then of course we've got the driftwood. This is all driftwood. There's nothing special involved with it at all. So I've just put the driftwood on a horizontal plane. So you've got two supports or two back supports, and then I've just placed the other bits of driftwood at different angles and different heights, just to give it a little bit of variation. And now this would be, if I just bring this back, it's a little bit too tall to use in situ as a 4-meter fence. And if you think of it being a safety fence, this gap here is actually wide enough for somebody to walk through if they so wish. But if you did want to use it as a as a lower fence like this, is a bit more decorative or a bit of a sight obscurer, as I've used it over here, then it works just fine. It's absolutely fine. So, and that's how that looks. Then all I've done here then is I've just attached the safety signs to it. So you see this quite a lot in our UK parks, where you just have this idea of the safety signs. And I wanted to keep this area in front clear. I was thinking about putting some kind of theming or something in, but I actually decided to keep it clear. It felt like it needed this space here needed to breathe. It was feeling a bit claustrophobic with other stuff in the queue line, so we just needed an area of the queue where you're not bombarded with loads and loads and loads of stuff. And then with the last thing then in this section is to do with this building here, and you can see that it's actually multiple buildings. There's one there, there's one there, and there's one there, and I think it's probably a fourth one actually. So the main building itself, this one here, this is made up of a Thememaker's Toolkit building piece. So this, yeah, I don't actually know what it is. It's just called Broken Wall in game. So I'm sorry, I don't actually know who it is, but it comes in multiple different variants. So you've got a corner piece that's a half wall, you've then got a full wall piece, you've got an exposed brick piece, you've got an exposed half wall. It comes in multiple different variants, and you can spin them around as well. So they're actually double textured. So if I do that, you can see that on the back then you have a plain wall, or you've got exposed brick on one side. And I can do the same this way. So it's plain on the back and then exposed on the front. So you've got some really, really nice design techniques and design things that you can use here. And then all I've done is I've just used the haunted house pillars again, just to put some supports in, and then also just to put something for the roof to actually sit on here. And then when we come inside this one, so you can see then that this is the queue line in here. So I've used the haunted house wooden fences. I love these, right, because they're just so good as a balustrade that you just probably couldn't make anything yourself. So just use the in-game ones where where you need to. And then you've got an anchor that's sitting in here. And then, of course, you've got just some pirate paraphernalia and stuff. The roof that I've used, again, it's just that scaffolding plank. There's nothing special with this one at all. It is what it is. And then you've just got some bins and everything that are around here. And then the floor is the Goza Temple. So, no, sorry, it's Incan Wall. It's not the Goza Temple at all. Come on, get it right. You've been away for far too long. So yeah, I think this is actually Thememaker's Toolkit, because it's not on a grid. So the Goza Temple one that I use quite a lot is on a grid, whereas this one isn't. So it's an in-can wall. So that will be Thememaker's Toolkit. But if you don't have access to Thememaker's Toolkit, you could use the Goza Temple floor, roof, or whatever it's called, and that would work. That would work just as well. And then the rest of the inside of here is just really bland, and I wanted to keep it that way. I wanted to keep it sort of quite stark and quite cold, as if you're entering some kind of cave. And then on the outside, then I've just put some pirate clutter around. So we've got the hydro drain pipes. They are so good. I realised this morning just how much of hydro stuff I use. A lot of the parks I build would not be possible without all the hydro stuff. So hydro, if you ever watch this, thank you. You're a bloody legend. So yeah, lots of then pirate paraphernalia sitting around here. Then you've got just a turret, just a round turret. There's nothing special with it. That's done by design. It's done intentionally. And then around the front here, I've just then scattered it around with loads of other piratey type stuff. And then of course we've got a lamppost here. Look at the mess we've made. Guys, this is such a mess. So we've got this lampshade light whatever here. Again, nothing over extreme here. It is literally the wooden post that comes with the game. Look, it's even already got its base. And then we've just got a couple of brackets. In fact, they're not even a couple of brackets. It's just the lights that are placed on the pillar, and then you've got the light on top, and it just creates that. So I wanted to keep it simple, because of course sometimes you just need to keep it simple where you possibly can. And then queue line over here in the station. So we are going to tear the station apart, but that's fine. We'll come to that later. So you've got the queue line here. This is just, again, it's all the castle brick wall set that's been lined up against the path, so it looks like it's that path. This has got the technique to it that I showed you earlier on about having a smaller grid. Now, there is a bit of a cheat with this one because I've used this broken wall set. This broken wall set does actually give you, and I don't know if I can show you. Oh, I can show you. So you can see here, I can't show you with the mouse because I've got my mouse selected. But, oh God, great demonstration, guys. Well done. So you can see that I've got a smaller grid piece. This is actually working on something like a 0.25. And so, yeah, that's the autosave. So it's working on a 0.25 grid, and I've actually now managed to place some of those bits down. Right, so whilst the autosave kicks in, let me just get some stuff ready to show you in the station. So that's something I have not missed in the week that I had off. A 28-minute autosave. Yep. So anyway, let's just carry on where we left off, because I've put loads of stuff back, and sometimes when you do an autosave you just need to put stuff back just in case you lose things. So I was talking about this grid, and you can see on here that it's actually on a 0.25 grid, and this only comes specifically with this wall set. Unfortunately it's one of the bugs that comes with the game, and it's the actual piece itself that causes that grid. You can't force that yourself. Now, back in the day we used to be able to force a 1 meter grid by placing down specific in-game scenery items that worked on the 1 meter grid, right? So it's the same principle, it's the same thing, but whoever's designed this has designed it on a 0.25 grid, and that's fine. I hope Frontier never fix it, because what that means is in builds like this, you now have this 0.25 grid that you can use instead. So whereas before I was showing you how you can do it by the 1 meter grid, and that's what you get in the game as standard, I've now managed to trick the game into using this smaller grid. So now I've actually got a bit more placement control over where I put it. So I do have to confess, there's a big confession coming up. Sit down, everybody. There is trickery, pokery, and trickery, and all sorts of witchcraft going on with this section, because I am using this 0.25 grid, and I shouldn't be. It's naughty. Slap my hand. So it's fine. We're done. So anyway, coming down the queue, this is all the same as I said before, but I've just decorated it out here. So this is the Baroque pillar that we get, and all I've done is I've just turned them upside down onto each other, and then it just creates. In fact, there's three. I say it like it's really simple. There's 3 pillars that are put in place, but they are essentially just turned upside down on top of each other and placed specifically so you end up with this stacking effect. And because one overlaps the other, it looks like it's the same width all the way down. So I've actually stolen this idea from something I saw at Chessington. So. Yeah, I can't remember what ride it is though. I think it's outside what used to be Ramesses Revenge. Then we've got these windows. These are nothing too sinisterly. Sinisterly? It's not even a word. Hey, this is why you watch my videos. We make up words, we make up things, and we just waffle our way through 30 minutes. And I don't know why you guys like it, but you do. So, anyway, this is just the driftwood. That's in place, and it's supposed to represent a window. I didn't even put a window behind it. Look, it's just on the actual on the actual wall. It's a bit lazy, but it works, right? So it looks like it is an actual window. And I'm all for, by the way, not. I used to be. I would have put a window behind there back in the day. But I've kind of now started to do a bit more design stuff at work in terms of looking into how things are designed. And actually, if people aren't going to see behind it, why design it? What's the point? There's no point. And so then you've also got this queue line as well. So this queue line, this is a Theme Maker's Toolkit jobber. I don't know how much of this I'm going to be able to select using the multi... Oh, it's all of it. Okay, good. And this is the Zadra fence pole. I found this at the very last minute. So there's a fence pole that's available that's themed for Zadra. And the idea is you're supposed to use supporting braces and everything in the background, and you can create, well, as it might suggest, the fence from Zadra. But actually, it works quite well here. They look like toothpicks, right? But it's what it is. It's done. So I wanted to have some kind of an obscuring fence along here. So that's what I've done here. Now, you couldn't put a fence here because, again, it's the evacuation part of this. So that's why there's no fence in this area here. And then coming into the actual station itself, so all I've done here is I've copied around. Let me just get into a place. There we go. So I've copied around all of the whatever they're called, the turrets and the broken wall and everything. Again, it's all on that secret 0.25 grid. And I've used the same roof all around as well, so it's that same green colour. This isn't black, it's a green colour. It's a really, really dark green. And then I've just scattered around more pirate stuff, boarded up some of the windows just to give it a bit of character, a bit of variation to it. So nice and simple, nice and simple, nice and simple. And then if I delete this top roof, you can see that I'm double roofing on the inside again. So all I've got is this metal roof at the top. Guests are never going to see it, so it doesn't actually matter. If I come down to this area here, look, you can't actually see what the roof is. You can only see what the shop actually is. And then inside the station, it's double roofed. So I'm using the same scaffolding roof as I have done elsewhere. There we go. And then inside the actual station itself is all just decorated and kitted out. So let me just quickly grab this. I'm just going to pause the game so that we're not fighting with the trains trying to pass. I'm just going to grab this and move this out of the way. And I'm also, if I can, going to grab this and move. That didn't work. What a surprise. Okay, let's just go ahead and remove these so we can see a little bit more inside. Right, unpause. Okay, so the wall itself then, I've kind of already shown you how to do these, but it's really simple. It's just the pirate fence that you get stacked on top of each other like this, like that, so it just creates a solid beam like that. And then these are the trapdoors. And I've just deactivated the trigger on the trapdoor. So it's the trapdoor, turn the other way around, and then it's just aligned to the wall that way. Nothing particularly special with that one. And then all you do is you then hide any unsightly, ugly lines. So I'm just going to come out of the building. There we go. And you hide those with, you guessed it. There we go. So you just hide it that way, and then you can start to create a bit of a paneling effect. So nothing trickery going on there. The floor I've just used again. As you can see, it's just the same scaffolding set. I just wanted it to have a wooden floor, so that's all I've done in here. And then, whoops, all of the actual paraphernalia inside. So pirate stuff, chains, the signs. It's all just how it's all put together. There's nothing particularly special. The baggage hold comes from Thememaker's Toolkit. It's the IKEA shelf set. A couple of signs that are dotted around. The staff units. So yeah, you're familiar with how these are all put together. Right. So let me just prepare some stuff for the shop, and let's show you how the shop is pulled together. So just before we tear apart the shop front, let's just take a moment to really truly appreciate this sign. How awesome does this look? I mean, it's 1,225 pieces, but it is worth every single piece. And it's a sign that's created by one of our frequent viewers, has been with us since the very beginning of the channel, has featured on Reel Up My Ride when that was a series, and it's Spike. So Spike, if you're watching, thank you so much. Your signs are incredible. They're all made by hydro beams. For the most part, I believe. I don't actually know. I think they all are hydro beams. Yeah, look, individually placed hydro beams. It must take absolutely hours to do. I've just got so much respect for these signs. And the way that Spike does it is to create a template offline or outside of the game, and then bring it in so we can put it onto a billboard, and then just line up the beams painstakingly one by one. So I don't have the patience to do it, right? I can build massive realistic parks. I just can't build signs that look like this. So these are just absolutely incredible. And Spike has also done this fountain as well that this person is walking through. Okay, whatever. And it's the same principle. It's just a lot of individually placed items. So we've lots of 1 meter wooden pillars, and the same principle. So we've created. Oh, and on the background, by the way, I believe is it's the colorable panel. The same principle as was used on the Sentinel sign. So you've got some light that's going on in the background, and then you just got loads of foliage and rocks and everything just to finish it off. But same principle, it's a design that's created outside, put into the game, and then individually painstakingly placed. Are just incredible. Truly incredible. And likewise with this one as well. So Spike gave me three things to use. The Kraken sign, which is recolorable in certain ways, but I actually quite like the original colours that were made, so I kept them. And then the fountain, and then the piece that sits in the fountain. So I decided to sink the piece that sits in the fountain into the ground because it looks quite good as a tile effect, and especially in front of the shop. So the shop itself is fairly simple but quite complex. It's a juxtaposition. That's what it is. It's a juxtaposition. So the actual shop front itself, there's the brick. So the pillar, and I think I used. Oh no, it was the castle wall. I had originally used the crypt wall, but I decided actually not to in the end. And then on the top here, we've just got loads of driftwood that's been placed, and this has got a slight colour variation to each one that's placed. You can't really see it unless you look for it, but it's placed in such a way that it's a bit of a brick effect. So I've placed it as if you would bricks. So you've got a lower level, and then it's staggered and everything. And then underneath here, it's the double roofing again. So you've got the metal roof and a wood roof. So there's a void in the middle here. But this time, inside the void, you've actually got pillars. You've got the beams. So here you can see that you've got the wooden house. You can't because of the hitboxes, but you've got the haunted house thick beam, and that lives in the middle, and that creates the separation of the void. And what you tend to find in here, by the way, if you're wondering, would be things like aircon units or pipe work or electricity or that sort of stuff. That's what you'd use the void in a ceiling for. At the front here, this is going to be a little bit difficult to show you, but in the front here we've got loads of these planks, and these come from Thememaker's Toolkit. I'm just going to see if I can. There we go. Do it this way. There we go. So these are just planks that come from Thememaker's Toolkit. They are pre-textured. I've used them on bridges and everything in Reigate Lake. So I've had these for quite a while. But what I've done is I've placed them into a square, or into a cube, or into a column, or whatever you want to do, or whatever you want to call it. And then I've created some window frames with it. So I've placed them, placed 3 down, and then I've got these going horizontally at the same time. And then I've created a thicker column as well. So if I just pull this one out, come on, this one, no, other way, there we go. So you can see that I've now got the 3 next to each other. I've got the 2 thinner ones and the 1 thicker one, and that's what creates this effect here. And it creates a separation between the windows then. So what I've done is I've placed a thin column, thin column, thin column, then a thick column, and then I've put horizontal ones across to create the window sill and just some breaks and splits in the window. And then I've hidden the join with the driftwood at the top that's all along here. Then of course you've got your doors. So these are Thememaker's Toolkit. They don't come with the game, they're just Thememaker's Toolkit. And then here, because I had a gap where neither a window or column or anything was going to go, I've just left with this really ugly gap. All I've done is I've used the haunted house plank just to create a bit of a wooden wall, and it actually looks really good. It just it was one of those features that just gave the building a little bit of character without knowing that that's actually what you've done, right? And then of course we've got a bit of a skirting board on the outside, if you like, a bit of a foundation board. And by the way, in the in the previous episode, couldn't work out where the noise is coming from. Have you worked out where it's coming from now? All of the oh god, all of the trapdoors that hadn't been deactivated on the triggers are still going, so I need to painstakingly go through these one by one and make them unloop, but it's fine for now. I'm just going to leave them as they are. So we've got the skirting board that's going along here anyway, just to give it a bit of a foundation, and that's the idea of that, is just to break up the wall so it's not a stark brick wall. And then inside, there's nothing really to show you inside because you've seen me build all of these before. I just use the same techniques wherever I go. So all of these are grouped into a scenery. So all of the shelves and whatever, they're all grouped into a scenery, and I just place those down. And then the rest is just all of the decor that you see me build. So these are all used in the station and everything. I've just copied it across so it's consistent theming. In case you're wondering, by the way, I haven't put the barriers for these shelves, and that's because these are too narrow. So if I put the barriers in to stop people walking through the shelves, they can't actually walk from the station. It confuses the AI. So unfortunately, this is one of those trade-offs that we do have to have which is sad, but it is what it is, right? So. And then in terms of the rest of the outside of the shop, just going back to what we're doing, I've just put some more guttering and everything along the side here, because of course this is quite a big building, so you'd want some kind of guttering that's going along the side. It's exactly the same guttering that I used over on the Quay line building, so there's nothing different with that one. You've already seen how that's built, and then you just clutter it out with some other shop paraphernalia, and then of course you've got the floor in here, and this is this in-can wall again because that's coming through from the queue, so you're wanting to use as much of the consistent design technique as possible, right? And then you just clutter out the area in front with just some pirate stuff and just make it look good. So when you put everything back to how it should be, this is how it looks from the guest view, and I'm so pleased with how this turned out. Like a proper chuffed with how it did. Right, cool. So there's one more thing to tear apart, but the auto save is about to kick in. So what's that? Alright, so let's go ahead and tear the launch section apart then. And do you know what? Just like the theme of everything else I do, this looks far more complicated than it really is. It's just a couple of pieces that are just placed down in the right orders. So as you're already familiar, a lot of this is all of the driftwood. And of course you'd use driftwood because it's all part of the pirate theme, right? So it fits. And all I've done is similar to the fence that I showed you earlier on. I've just placed them down and changed the angles and everything that it lives on. They're not all completely vertical, they're not all completely in a straight line. They've got different widths and lengths and all sorts going on, and then I've also changed the colour as well. So you can see on this one that we've got a slightly different brown, and all you do with that one is you select a base colour, and then you come into the next piece and then you select the same base colour, but then go to the colour picker and then just choose where you want to go. So you can see, if I move it up here, you can see you've got a little cross, and that's where your colour is. And so yeah, that's all you do, is you just choose a different base colour. And I always just tend to stick around this darker area, and then just go more towards the grey or more towards the orange, and then that's how you get your different levels of brown. And then of course, because it's a fence, it's going to need something to have a support in the background. So I've just used the haunted house pillars, as I have done everywhere else, just to create the vertical and horizontal supports that you would expect to have as part of a fence. And then because it's raised up, you're going to want something for that fence and everything to sit on. So it's just those same columns, those same beams that we've been using, but I've just put 3 in a row. 1, 2, 3. There we go. And then I've just laid that underneath the fence. And then I've used the log that comes with, I think this is the western part of the theming pack. And I've just placed them next to each other. Now I've used this one because I wanted to have a real thick beam for it to rest on, because obviously this is going to be having quite a lot of weight added to it. So I've just used it, and then all I've done is I have overlaid them so they're like this, and then because you get this real unsightly line that's going on, I then actually decided to do a vertical column, and then that vertical column hides the join. So there you go. So it's seamless, but it's not actually seamless, because if you remove the vertical column, it's a horror show underneath. So it's fine. And then what I did there is I created the floor. It's exactly the same principle as creating the fence. I've just laid down the 4-meter driftwood instead of the 2-meter or the 2-meter driftwood. Recolored it in the same way, so they're not the same colors, of course, as the fence, but recolored it in using the same method. You choose a base color, and then you choose a different color based on the color picker. And then because it is a big thing, it needs support underneath it, so I've just again carried across those columns and those beams and everything underneath to create a bit of a support for it to all rest on. And then wherever you've got these beams, then you just do the underside, and you do the lateral bracing at the same time, so you're creating a framework for it to all sit on. Then what I did, so I actually created an 8-meter section, so it was from, say for example, from here to here, And then I copied that 8-meter section across, so I didn't have to place every single item individually one by one. And if you do look carefully, you can see, I hate pointing this out, but you can see that there is a repeating pattern, and that's because I've taken the 8-meter section and I've copied them across just to sort of make it easier. And then of course you just lay down some wiring and some cabling, and then you put the relevant electric cables and stuff that you want to put down. You put the lights along the launch section, and then of course if you're using any kind of special effects, then you trigger your special effects to be all at the same time. So these do operate as 2 separate lines, but then copied into 2 separate lines in the sense of 1 launch, 2 launch. That's your 2 lines. And then all I've done is I've taken this section, copied it across, deleted the last bit, and then made that a thing. So let me just put those back, because the last thing to show you here, I think that's everything. Yep, that's everything. The last thing to show you is the how I've done this effect here. So you will not be surprised that there is some jiggery pokery going along here. Now you see me do this everywhere. This should not be news to you, but just in case it is, floor covers, path covers are an absolute godsend. So you can see that my path doesn't line up with the end here. And if you remember back to the beginning of this episode, I told you that the terrain was sticking out. That's, if I just do that, that's why. So I've obviously laid this down originally with the flattened terrain on, and then when I've placed the path down and I've changed the path textures and everything, it's created this effect here where the terrain then sticks through. So what I do is I always place my pathing just back slightly, and then if I move these out of the way, you can see that I've got a really jagged edge of the terrain. So I've laid down like I've laid. Let me start that again. Let me try that again. So I've laid down all the terrain and everything in this area, but I've placed it back purposely. I've then created a grid using the path, and then let the flattened terrain do its job, and that's why you end up with this lip underneath, and that's so that you don't have terrain that's poking through the wall, right? And then what you do is you just line the wall up to hide the actual terrain join itself, and then you end up with this effect that you've got here. But then you have this gap, so you can see that I've got this gap where there's this grass, and that's where your path covers then come into it. Your path covers come along and make it look like it's all one piece. So this piece here is actually simple as anything. It is just the 4-meter wall placed on top of each other. And then the ghost, I think this one comes with a Ghostbuster, the Romanesque column. I think it's part of the Gozer temple. So you just put the column down, you put some kind of a fence along the top, in which in this case I've just used the haunted house fence, and then of course you've got the concrete slab as well, and that creates the lip. Now I did think about putting the flooring right up to this lip, so it was seamless. But then I sort of looked around at other areas that have done this in other parks, and you always seem to have this concrete lip where it's different. And plus, it also means that I get a bit of a buffer to be able to hide the path and everything in here. Because even though this texture is quite forgiving, you do notice when it's not right, when it's not in a single line. So that's why I've done that. And then of course I've just copied it around with some other paraphernalia just to bring it to life, just to bring the pathing area into the ride area itself. And so that's what you end up with. This is the effect that you end up with. It looks like it's one seamless piece of pathwork that actually really isn't a seamless piece of pathwork at all. The path runs underneath here, and then this is just hiding that gap. So guys, that brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for your patience with my week off and with the vomiting that was ensuing with this one, and the reason why it's not. There will be an extras episode for the building work, but I think I'm going to do that for the next episode that's coming out this Sunday, and put it all together so that I can show you the whole of the pirate area, because the pirate area is not quite finished yet, right? So there's still stuff to go. If you like the video, then you know what to do. Leave a like on the video, leave a comment. You guys know I like chatting to you anyway. So until we speak again, please look after yourselves. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.